Bengals cornerback Mike Hilton quickly became a fan favorite in year one of his time with the Bengals. The veteran corner is here to talk about all things Bengals right here on Locked On.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for making us your first listen to the only daily Bengals podcast. That's what we are. So make sure that you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You check us out on YouTube. So more Bengals fans are going to be able to find us because it's certainly an exciting time for the Bengals, an exciting time for Mike Hilton. And Jake Liscow and I talk with Mike Hilton. You'll hear part one of our conversation coming up in just a second. But yeah, it's wild to think about Mike Hilton when he signed here last year. The fact that the Bengals now 10-7, they make this playoff run to Super Bowl 56, and the defense, specifically Hilton, a huge reason why. So in today's show, it's more so talking about the offense, the stars, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. We do talk to Hilton about the one coach that thought he was too little, and it was his dream school. The coach was coaching at his dream school. So we'll ask him about that, a pretty fun answer there. And you'll hear a little bit about Lua Anarumo in part one of our conversation here with Mike Hilton. So without further ado, let's dive into it. It's Jake Liscow. And it's me, James Rapien, with Mike Hilton, the Bengals star nickel cornerback.
Mike, welcome to the Locked On Bengals podcast. You're on a bit of a podcast tour. You tweeted last week you wanted to start going on some podcasts. So I'm curious, let's start there. What drove that instinct? Why did you want to start getting on some podcasts?
Man, it's just, just getting myself out there, promoting myself. We have on helmets, so it's hard to see our face. So, knowing how big Cincinnati is, how big it's getting right now, I just want to put my face out there, just get connected with the right people.
It's obviously you're entering your second year here in Cincinnati, Mike. How much love did you feel from the fan base, and how much of that is wanting to do this tour and talk with people and get out in the community a bit more, knowing how diehard Cincinnati fans are?
Oh, man, it's been accepted since I've signed, man. And I was really excited about how the fans accepted me, especially coming from Pittsburgh. But, they accepted me, and they accepted the energy I brought on the field. So now I'm just trying to give back, just put myself out there and, show I'm still the same guy off the field. So, I'm just trying to promote, man, and trying to, just you use my platform for good.
I think that's a pretty cool way to go about it. Obviously, you come up from an undrafted free agent to signing a big 4-year deal with Cincinnati. But when you were a kid, did you want to be a football player when you grew up, or what was little Mike Hilton's dream?
That was the dream. My parents still got little handwritten notes from elementary school from when I was talking about being a football player. So it's a blessing to see that dream come true, man, and to make it this far in my career, I just never take it for granted. I'm blessed to be here, man, and I just and really love what I do.
Was there ever a moment or a person or a situation where maybe it's a teacher, coach, whatever, that doubted you, that said, "Oh, you're silly for thinking that you could make it this far and make it to the NFL and be a professional football player"?
Okay, so it wasn't the NFL, but I know it was during high school recruiting. It was my junior year, and I remember to this day, Mark Rick at the time came up to the high school. And, I was, the big guy, the main prospect at our high school. So I sat down and talked to him. Georgia was one of my dream schools that I would love to go to, but we sat down and had a conversation. And, the first thing he said to me was, he just looked at me, he said, "You're a lot smaller than I thought." And I was like, "What you mean by that?" He was just like, you don't look the part of what I need. after that, that's something that's always stuck with me, man. And that's the reason why I play the way I do.
People doubted that I could play football too, but turns out they were right. You talked about using your platform to promote good and use this platform you found yourself on to do some good things. And you don't get a ton of free time, especially in a Super Bowl season. But what do you like to do when you're not on that football grind in those rare windows? Or what are the good things that you're trying to accomplish right now?
Man, just number one, just spending this time with my family. That's most important to me. I'm gone half the year, so half my family's in Georgia. So when I'm in Cincinnati, I got my wife and kids. So I take that all season time to really just spend with them and just really enjoy that time. But something I've been trying to get into more is cooking a lot more. That's something I'm definitely been working on this off season. So it's a couple of things that I'm definitely just doing a lot more in my spare time.
All right. Georgia's come up twice now, so I kind of want to reverse course and go back. Did you ever get to see Mark Richt again and kind of, I don't want to say rub it in his face, but have you seen him since you've had all of this success, whether it is in college or now in the NFL?
Yeah, we played him my freshman year. We went to Georgia. I'm pretty sure he didn't remember who I was, but pretty sure I said something to him. But that was definitely the last time we've ever had a face-to-face.
I wonder what he would say now.
Oh, no, for sure.
Because you heard the same thing with Jamar Chase, the coach that told him that he wasn't a wide receiver. Remember?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Les Miles.
Les Miles. Yeah, when he was getting recruited, he was told that he should start playing some other position.
Ooh. See how that turned out.
Yeah.
Sometimes college coaches don't get it right. I got one more little trivia question for you here before we dive into some of your time with the Bengals. Last night, my friend who I'm in Canada, so I have a bunch of friends up here who don't know anything about the NFL, don't know anything about the Bengals. And she wanted to know why the Bengals got their name. And so I looked it up. And did you know that the origins of the Cincinnati Bengals comes from an unaffiliated with the current organization, but a independent football team in Cincinnati in the 30s and 40s, late 30s, early 40s, 1900s. And the guy that started them, his mom had a stove that was a Bengal brand stove. So people think Bengals and Tigers, right? But the Bengals were named after a stove. And obviously they picked up the tiger iconography. But what do you think of that? The Cincinnati Bengals named after a stove from the early 1900s.
I don't know, man. I guess that means we're hot now. I don't know. It's just something. We have a visitor. I'm sorry. Hey, go in there with mommy. Sorry, guys.
No,
You're okay. I'm just glad you were working on your cooking. See, it goes with the stove theme.
Fits
it worked perfectly.
And it ties it all together. Before we dive into the football, you mentioned it before we started recording, but and I knew this. I knew you were a father. You have a 2-year-old, and now you have a newborn as of a few days ago.
Yep.
That's how do you balance that? What goes into that? Because neither of us, Jake and I, neither of us are fathers. I'm a dog dad, but that's about as far as it goes right now.
Man, it's just just knowing how to balance it. It was definitely tough, especially with my first one. But just really just learning from the experience through her. I can definitely do the same things with him. So I just kind of just take what I've learned from these two, going on 3 years with my daughter, and just using them on my son, and just knowing they're the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, and I just want to provide for them and make sure they're well taken care of.
We'll get back to our conversation with Bengals cornerback Mike Hilton, but first, a word from Built Bar, the #1 protein bar on the planet. And maybe Mark Richt could have got on the Built Bar plan, and Mike Hilton, look, made it to the NFL. And I'm not saying Built Bars had something to do with it, but whether you're an NFL player like Mike Hilton or you're a Locked On Bengals listener, I'm telling you right now, Built Bar is the #1 protein bar on the planet. They're high in protein, low in sugar, low in calories. And so maybe you want a post-workout punch. maybe you just want a healthy snack in the middle of the day between meetings. Regardless, Built Bar has a flavor for you. So check them out right now at built.com. Use promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your order. Don't delay. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off.
Let's talk a little bit about your arrival in Cincinnati. And I want to start with the culture of the Bengals locker room, because every time I hear players on this team talk, I hear them talk about their friends on the team or doing things outside of football with their teammates, or how tight-knit the locker room is. And to me, there's something especially unique about that in Cincinnati, because there are so many new players that are in big roles on this team. You're one of them. Your first year arriving in this locker room, could you put your finger on what enabled you guys to become such a tight-knit group with so many new faces that hadn't been together before?
I would just say it's just the front office bringing in different guys from different organizations with different personalities. And they're bringing them from winning organizations at that. Guys that have been to the playoffs, that knows what it takes to make those deep playoff runs. And one thing that's stuck with our locker room is the chemistry off rip, because it's a lot of young guys in our locker room. That's the thing. Like, I don't think it's maybe one or two older than 30, and I could be wrong about that. So it's just we're all young, and we're all just still really enjoying the game and just enjoy playing with each other. Like, we love to see each other succeed, and we know that can take us a long way.
How rare is that? Obviously, you came from a organization and a program that had a really strong culture led by Mike Tomlin. And even before that, the Steelers are the Steelers. It's how unique is that chemistry that you guys had last year here in Cincinnati compared to your time with the Steelers, and compared to teammates and other people across the league that might not have had as strong of a culture in the system and team that they were on?
Like you said, the Steelers organization just been known for tradition. They're a family-ran organization that's been doing it for a long time. They thrive off bringing in the right guys that can help them win, and just right guys in general. So I can definitely see the same similarities in Cincinnati. Like I said, we're a lot younger, so we're still learning, and that's the thing. We're just going to grow together, and we're going to get better. And guys, like I said, guys here aren't selfish, man. Like, we know we got some big name stars in our locker room, but you'll never know that by how they carry themselves. And guys in my position really appreciate that, especially them being younger guys. So it's something that we just going to keep building, and like I said, it can carry us far.
You talk about the stars of the Cincinnati Bengals. You can't go far talking about the stars of the Cincinnati Bengals without talking about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, two of the top 20 in NFL merchandise sales in the last year. We're also going to talk about Jesse Bates, of course. I would like to talk about DJ Reader, but nose tackles don't get enough love.
Thanks.
What's it like being in a locker room with these young guys who just came into the league and picked up where they left off, and just go right back to the Super Bowl, their first year back together at the highest level?
Man, it just shows the connection, number one, that they have together. Like, you can just tell I trust you to be in that position, and he makes the play for him every time. So just knowing how far they've come over their last 2 or 3 years playing together, I'm excited to see it grow even more. Both of them, are still learning on the fly, being a receiver going into his second year and a quarterback going into his third. So they're just now really learning how to play football and really learn the ins and outs of the NFL game. So I'm excited. I'm glad they're on my team for sure. So I'm excited to see what those guys can do.
What did you think about Joe Burrow? I looked it up, and I covered the game. I wasn't there, but Burrow rolls into Pittsburgh November 15th, 2020. He's a rookie. It's your final year with the Steelers, and I believe it was 36-10. Yeah. The Steelers, rolled over the Bengals. And I don't want to get into the second matchup, the Monday night matchup that our listeners would much rather us talk about. But what were your thoughts about Burrow after that game? Because he struggled, no doubt about it. It was one of his worst games of his rookie year before his injury. What were your initial impressions after going up against him that first game?
He just showed toughness. I remember that game. We were definitely getting after him, just making him uncomfortable. But we remember he definitely stood in there and took some shots, but definitely made some good throws. And it showed he had the poise and, the toughness to be a great quarterback. So seeing this growth from his rookie year to now, I'm excited to see how much more he can grow in general, man. And just as a leader, as a quarterback, and just as a guy the room is gonna count on. So we're excited, and we know he's gonna lead us.
You talk a lot about intangibles, and I think a lot of fans don't have a great understanding of why some of that stuff matters. Obviously, leadership people can relate to in their ordinary lives. You have leaders in your workplace, you have leaders in your community, but how important is that toughness? Because you talked about noticing that as an opponent of Joe Burrow. You talk about you hear that from a number of his opponents. You hear it from his teammates. Can you quantify what makes that toughness in the quarterback position so important?
Number one is just being in the quarterback position. Number one, you get all the praise for winning, but you'll take all the blame for losses. So it's number one, just having that mentality of having that thick skin. Nothing's going to bother him, and you can just see the way he plays, his toughness. Like I said, he'll stand in the pocket and make throws. Tennessee game, sacked 9 times, but when called upon, makes the throw of the game. And, he's just a guy that has the it factor, man, and he's definitely gonna be a great one.
Let's just stick with the star since we're on that topic. Last training camp, Jamar Chase comes in 5th pick. There's this huge debate about who the Bengals should take. They take Chase. People are excited, and he gets a case of the drops in preseason and obviously in practice, and you saw it. Was there ever a point where you were worried, concerned, thought about it more, much like the outside was? Because there was a lot of talk outside, including on this show, about it. Was there any concern there from you?
Not really. Just knowing he's coming, he took a year off in between. So, he definitely has to get his football rhythm back. And he definitely struggled in preseason, but nobody doubted what he was capable of, because the same drops he might have not made in the preseason game, we see him make even better ones in practice. And once he got that confidence after that Minnesota game, that's when he took off, man. And we all knew it was just a matter of time. So he's an explosive guy, and we're excited to have him.
Obviously, and this will probably be the last question on wide receivers, at least for me. The Bengals have a trio of very, very good starting wide receivers. Some might say the best in the NFL. You deal with them in practice. What's the biggest development for those guys that you've seen as a guy that has to cover them over the last year? Because to me, one thing that really stands out is T. Higgins and Jamar Chase route running as young receivers coming into the league. T, for his size, moving incredibly well. And Jamar Chase, a guy that in college seemed to really win because he was just better than his opponents, having to refine his game in the NFL. Is that something you noticed, or am I crazy?
Yeah, no, that's definitely noticeable. Both of them put in the work to do so. They both would stay out to practice just to, work on simple things. Working on that first step out the break and just seeing them go through the whole route tree. You understand why those guys put in the work, and it shows on Sunday. Like they know how talented they are, but they won't let them get it won't let it go to the big head, and they just keep working hard, man. And they're for 2 young guys that really that's in the spotlight, for them to know they got the right mentality. Like they're not big headed guys; they're level headed and just guys that you can definitely play with.
All right, Mike. Let's talk about you, since we are talking with you here on the podcast. What was your favorite moment of last season? I think back to the pick 6 against Pittsburgh, obviously the interception against Tennessee. Maybe it's winning the AFC title game, but what was your favorite moment when you look back and reflect on your first season with the Bengals?
If I had to choose, I got to go to pick 6. I honestly say that was definitely a little more personal for me, definitely. But I just felt it was a play that kind of showed that the Bengals are here. Like we're here to run the AFC North. We got bigger dreams, of course, but we're here to take the division over, man. And I definitely say if I had to choose, it would be that play.
You played the most snaps you've ever played in a season in 2021. Over 1,000 snaps, including the postseason. Go back to Ole Miss, to when you got close to that number in Pittsburgh, playing, roughly 500-600 snaps a year. you blitzed a little bit less
Yep.
than on a per snap basis than you did in Pittsburgh. So 2 questions about that. One, how was it just playing an extra 400, 500 snaps on your body and on your mental? And 2, you wanna blitz a little bit more this year?
That's the first one. I honestly didn't even notice. Like, I know I take pride in my off-season workouts and my in-season workouts just to keep me in the best shape as possible. And I feel like my preparation just prepares me for those extra plays I might have to go out there and play. So I definitely didn't notice. I feel good physically, feel good mentally. So that is a good sign to know I played that many snaps and came away relatively healthy. And to answer your second question, I don't want to say too much, but yeah, I think I would. But hey, that's why I trust Lou, man. I know he's going to put me and put us in a position to win that down. So whenever he dials up my number, he knows I'll be ready. So I'm excited to see what else he can mix in this upcoming season.
Great stuff there from Mike Hilton. And at the end there, he gave you a little taste of what part 2 is going to start with, which is really a dive into Lou Anarumo and some good conversation about the Bengals defensive coordinator. We'll also talk about the Bengals defense and what they did during that playoff run, how important these rookies like Dax Hill, Tyson Anderson, Cam Taylor-Britt, how important they can be to the Bengals secondary. And well, I asked Mike Hilton about the indoor practice facility. Was he aware of it? Was he aware of the Bengals' lack of one? What did he think about that during the free agency process? How excited is he now that they're in the process of building one for the 2022 season? That and so much more in part 2 of our conversation with Mike Hilton coming up on Thursday's show right here on the Locked On Bengals podcast. So for Jake Liscow, I'm James Rapien. Shout out to Mike Hilton for joining us. You'll hear part 2 tomorrow right here on the Locked On Bengals podcast.